President Trump announced that his administration are considering imposing banking sanctions and economic tariffs on Russia as a means to encourage a ceasefire and peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. Speaking from the White House, Trump indicated that the goal of these measures was to push both sides toward a resolution before the situation worsens further. The move represents a potential shift in Trump's earlier stance, which was more focused on limiting U.S. involvement in the war. While he has criticized continued military aid to Ukraine, this announcement suggests he is open to using economic pressure on Russia as a tool to influence negotiations. In his statement, Trump outlined key points of his potential strategy. 1. Banking sanctions on Russian financial institutions. Trump suggested new sanctions targeting Russian banks, particularly those facilitating international transactions. These sanctions could limit Russia's ability to conduct foreign trade, including energy exports. The administration is reportedly considering restrictions on state-owned banks like Sberbank and VTB Bank, which could make it harder for Russia to access global markets. 2. Tariffs on Russian exports. The administration is weighing higher tariffs on Russian oil, gas, and other key exports to Western markets. This could increase pressure on the Russian economy, making it more difficult for the Kremlin to sustain its military operations. Trump's advisors are also looking into tariffs on Russian metals, such as aluminum and steel, which have been important revenue sources for Moscow. 3. Freezing Russian assets in the U.S. Another measure under discussion is freezing additional Russian assets in the U.S., particularly those linked to Russian oligarchs and government officials. The U.S. has already frozen billions in Russian assets, and further steps could increase financial pressure. 4. Trade restrictions on technology and defense materials. The administration is also considering export restrictions on technology and defense-related materials to Russia. This could impact Russia's ability to produce advanced weaponry, especially given its reliance on Western components. Trump's decision to consider these sanctions and tariffs comes amid growing pressure from both U.S. allies and domestic political forces. The motivations behind this move can be broken down into several key factors. 1. Pressure to take a stronger stance against Russia. While Trump has often been seen as more lenient on Russia compared to previous administrations, many U.S. lawmakers, including Republicans, have urged him to hold Russia accountable for its actions in Ukraine. By proposing economic measures instead of direct military aid, Trump can appease critics without committing additional U.S. troops or resources. 2. Encouraging peace talks. Between Russia and Ukraine, Trump has repeatedly stated that he wants to end the war through negotiations rather than continued military support. By using economic leverage, he hopes to pressure both Moscow and Kiev into compromises that could lead to a peace agreement. 3. Economic considerations and domestic politics. Trump has emphasized America First economic policies, focusing on reducing foreign spending and prioritizing domestic economic interests. Rather than continuing billions in military aid to Ukraine, using tariffs and sanctions shifts the burden onto Russia while avoiding additional U.S. financial commitments. 4. Energy market and global trade implications. By targeting Russia's oil and gas sector, Trump's proposed measures could disrupt global energy markets. This could have mixed effects. Higher global oil prices may benefit American energy producers, but could also increase domestic fuel costs, impacting consumers. While these measures could increase pressure on Russia, they also come with significant risks and challenges. 1. Russia's countermeasures. Russia has experience dealing with Western sanctions and could respond with countermeasures, such as restricting gas exports to Europe. Moscow could also seek closer economic ties with China and India to offset Western trade restrictions. 2. Impact on European allies. Many European nations still rely on Russian energy, and new sanctions could lead to higher energy prices. Some European leaders may resist Trump's proposal if they fear economic fallout in their own countries. 3. Effectiveness of sanctions and tariffs. Economic pressure alone may not be enough to force Russia into peace talks. Historically, sanctions have had mixed success in altering the Kremlin's behavior. 4. Domestic political opposition. Some members of Trump's own party may oppose these measures, especially those who favor a more conciliatory approach toward Russia. Democrats, on the other hand, may support stronger actions against Russia, but criticize Trump for cutting military aid to Ukraine. These were the reactions from around the world to this decision from Trump. 1. Ukraine's response. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has welcomed any measures that increase pressure on Russia. However, Ukraine remains concerned about Trump's suspension of military aid, which could weaken its defenses. 2. Russia's response. The Kremlin has dismissed Trump's threats as economic blackmail. Russian officials have warned of retaliatory measures, including shifting trade away from the U.S. and its allies. Third international community NATO, allies are divided. Some support tougher sanctions, while others fear economic repercussions. China and India, which continue to trade with Russia, may ignore these measures, reducing their effectiveness. Trump's consideration of sanctions and tariffs against Russia marks a strategic shift in his approach to the Ukraine conflict. By using economic pressure rather than military intervention, he seeks to push Russia and Ukraine toward a negotiated settlement while maintaining his America First priorities. However, the success of these measures remains uncertain. Russia has proven resilient to previous sanctions, and the international response will be crucial in determining their effectiveness. Additionally, Trump will have to balance domestic political pressures and economic consequences as he moves forward with this strategy. In the coming weeks, it will be important to watch how Russia responds, whether it escalates the war or engages in negotiations. How European allies react, whether they support or oppose these measures. The impact on global energy markets, especially oil and gas prices. Trump's final decision, whether he formally implements these sanctions and tariffs or opts for an alternative approach. Regardless of the outcome, this move signals a major development in U.S. foreign policy under Trump's leadership.